What's up, everybody? Welcome to the stream. It is ThreatGEN. It's Wednesday at 11:30 a.m., which means it's time to jump into the ThreatGEN Red versus Blue cybersecurity simulation platform and pilot either the red team or the blue team in a realistic environment to see how actually operationally security works from a practitioner perspective. It is a blue day. We can be blue or red in the ThreatGEN simulator. Today, we will be operating as a blue teamer. We have a special show for you today in that we will be approaching exclusively implementing a cybersecurity program at a manufacturing plant using the BRICE method. Now, we're going to get into this in a second, but the BRICE is not technically a cybersecurity framework in the true sense that we think of like NIST cybersecurity framework or ISO 27001. BRICE is used more for product management. But I was talking to a good friend and colleague, Brandon Poole, the other day, and he mentioned potentially using it as a framework. And what better way to test the efficacy of a possible framework solution than using it in the simulator and see how it actually stacks up against an active adversary trying to attack our manufacturing plant. So we're going to hop into it today. I'm going to first grab Brandon. Obviously, Clint's going to join us as he always does every Wednesday at 11:30. We'll give you a little primer on what that BRICE method is, and then we'll jump into the simulator and have a good time. So sit back, relax, get ready to have a good time, and let's roll. All right, so welcome to the show, Clint. As always, you're here. It's good to see you, Brandon. Thank you for being a guest, I guess operator, if you will, on the stream today. Appreciate it.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So let's take a look really quick at the BRICE method before we get in. Now, this is the RICE method, which I think is very similar to the BRICE method. Can you just give us like a 50,000 foot overview of what this method is and how we're going to implement it today in the simulator?
Yeah, so the RICE methodology is primarily like a product management framework. So, you own a product and you have all these feature requests that your end users want to see.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, it can be overwhelming. So, how do we prioritize these different features? So, the RICE framework is a framework that helps you kind of figure out what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck and how to prioritize the feature set. And that's essentially RICE and BRICE all in, a nutshell. Now, the difference between RICE and BRICE is RICE stands for reach, impact, confidence, effort. BRICE adds that business impact, which is that B on there. So it gives you a way to kind of quantify this, score this stuff, and then move forward. And the idea behind this is that in a lot of folks that I've consulted with, you have like a security roadmap. You've got like, 100 different initiatives, and how do you figure out what's going to give you the most bang for your buck? And if you think about it, cybersecurity really is kind of like an internal product. So the theory here is that you could use a product management framework to actually prioritize, where do I implement MFA first, or what control would I implement first if, they're kind of right there on the same level.
Mm-hmm. So what is the scoring methodology that we're going to use for deciding between gateway firewall and security awareness training?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple to do the calculation. It's just B, which is your business impact, times reach times confidence, all divided by effort. So the way I usually do it is, business impact we will do on a scale of like 1 to 4, 1 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Your reach is going to be kind of in a percentage, so anywhere from 0 to 100%. If you have like a control that, in the case of this game, like EDR, you only install on one individual machine, of course, it's going to be ranked lower than something that's going to be across like a whole network segment.
Yeah.
Impact, what your expected impact is, once again, like that could be anywhere from, 1 to 3 or 0 to, 100%, however you want to do that. And then confident is how confident are you going to get that outcome? And then you have effort, And the way I was thinking about doing that is just how many turns it's going to take. So,
Okay.
obviously,
Or how many people?
once
I
again,
think.
yeah, trying to get more
how many
bang for your buck.
resources or
Yeah.
whatever? Yeah.
Yep.
Let me
Okay.
real quick. Can I jump in? I just want to say that one thing I really like about this, and I've never heard of this before, by the way. The first of all, the B, I like the BRICE better than the RICE, from what I hear, and the reason why is because cybersecurity is we do cybersecurity because of risk to business. We don't. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of us out there that are cybersecurity superheroes, and we do it because we want to do the whole classic red versus blue, good versus evil, whatever. But
Mhm.
ultimately, cybersecurity is we do this to minimize cyber risk to the business. That's why I really like this. And the other, I'll close it out by saying that this is a really good method. It sounds like for when you implement your mitigation plan or your POAM or those sorts of things. Is that this is the first time that I've even heard of or seen something that helps you create your actual entire cybersecurity strategy beyond a risk management framework like NIST. What is it? NIST at 83739, those kind of things, ISO 27005. So this is something that's really cool, I think, and I'm hoping it is. Like I said, first time I've seen this, first time I've been exposed to this, but this is unique. I like it.
Yeah, it's going to be cool, and really, you're bringing up arguably one of the biggest oversights in cybersecurity on the GRC side, which is essentially like if you're going to implement 837, the idea is that you implement all the controls before you authorize the system to operate in a production environment, and that's just completely unrealistic in any setting. So you have to prioritize what controls to put in place because it costs budget, it takes time, and you're not going to wait to go live until you've got everything in place. So like that's the biggest secret about GRC is that you have to prioritize and execute in a staged fashion. So 100% agree with you, Clint, that this gives you the tools basically to make an informed decision. So I'm super pumped. Let's get the portal up and running really quickly here, and let's see where we're at. Okay, so I'm going to go full screen here. Let me just set this up really quickly, guys. And by the way, if for those of you who don't know, Brandon has been on Simply Cyber before, but he is a seasoned blue team operator. So this is right up in his wheelhouse as far as like piloting this and seeing what's gonna happen here. So let's go full screen. Let's turn the music on, right? Is that too loud? Is the music too loud?
You can adjust it in the settings.
Okay. Actually, Clint, will you handle the music because I'm running my audio through a bunch of different
Well, like I can't do ThreatGEN music for you, but I can do other music.
Yeah. Just do if
Yeah.
you can, like your lo-fi or whatever. Okay, so let's get into the game here. We'll do single player. We'll play as a blue team. Let's go with the manufacturing plant today. We've got our win conditions here, which is eliminate all vulnerabilities, which is an incredibly difficult win condition and is really difficult in reality as well. Like you show me one organization that has zero vulnerability, I will show you a damn liar. is basically the deal here. We will increase threat intelligence score to 100% if we can catch the person. And then outlasting the red team, I feel like is probably on brand for this BRICE method. So let's get into it. Okay. And by the way, I see you all in chat. Good to see you, Justin. Good to see you, Seba. Just Ben's in here. Carrie representing. Bob, as always, here on the stream. So it's great to have you guys with us. Feel free to engage in chat. We're here to have a good time. Okay, so we got our manufacturing plant. Let's look at our actual network diagram. Here you go. Brandon, we've got an AD server over here, which is excellent. We've got some switches and routers. The internet is here. Kathy is working remote from Starbucks. Very nice. We've got our end user workstation network segment and the DMZ engineering workstation over here, and our PLCs and HMIs for running our manufacturing plant. So what are we doing first? We've got $50,000 and 3 analysts to work with, Brandon.
All right, so I've got a fancy little spreadsheet over here to do these computations fairly quick.
Oh, good.
So, gateway firewall, I'm assuming that that's going to impact, more than one device. It's going to set
Yep.
your border. So, as far as like a reach, let's give that a 4. Does that work?
Okay. Yeah, that's
Paul?
great. And it costs zero. It costs zero resources too, as far as effort, right?
Yeah. Well, we'll also take into account like turns. So
Okay. Okay.
we'll do resources plus turns. So effort, we'll give it a 1. As far as impact, what would you say?
I would give it the highest. It's so important.
So let's give that a 4 as well.
Okay.
And then, as far as confidence level, how confident are you that's going to yield the results you want?
Pretty high confidence. We've got a good firewall engineer working on it.
All right, so let's go with like a 90, so 0.9. And business impact, I mean, this is affecting kind of your whole business. Let's go with, what would you say, like a 2, 3, somewhere in the middle?
Yep, that sounds good.
And then very quickly, policy and procedures, what would you say? Business would be...
It's important to the business because it sets the tone of like what management thinks. So I would give it like not the highest, as high as gateway, but it's important to the business for sure.
So 1, we'll do a 4 as far as reach. Impact, I feel like the impact of this probably is less, so you want to go with a 2.
Yep. It does unlock some stuff, but I'm with you. Hey, we have 20 seconds, Brandon.
All right, so right now we're at firewall gateway.
Okay, so let's do that for sure. And then we have 2 people. Hold on. Oh, it costs. We have 3 people. What are we gonna do?
Oh, we'll do policy and procedures then next.
Okay, and then we have. Let's do asset inventory.
5, 4.
Okay,
3,
so the turn's gonna end,
2.
but like while the red team's taking their turn, let's work on this a little bit, Brandon. Okay.
Okay.
So we got our perimeter firewall installed. You can see it here on the screen, so we're operating all right. We're working on policies and procedures, so we actually have all of our resources are allocated. I kind of jumped the gun because of timing on this, but let's take advantage of this real quick, Brandon. With the BRICE method, let's actually do network segmentation. So that's 2 analysts, 3 turns, $10,000. Very expensive. So would that be under effort as far as the cost? Like if it has a high cost?
Correct.
Okay. So this is an interesting opportunity because network segmentation is really important, but it is super expensive in the scheme of this simulation. So I would give it a high effort cost, but I would give it a high impact cost or value. The reach, it's the entire network, so it's got a pretty good reach. I don't think the business would actually care about it or like it, honestly. Usually network segmentations introduces friction to a business, right? So we've all encountered that. So, and then confidence, I don't know how to evaluate the confidence on this one.
I mean, you're 100% confident that's going to, cause some kind of harm, right? Or slow down the adversary.
Yes.
So I would say somewhere in the high confidence range. So let's just do like a 0.9. So
Okay.
real quickly doing that. As far as effort, I just added turns plus people times the monetary value, and we get a 0.0075.
Okay. All right. So so it's good. Like you basically do the work in advance, and then that value is almost static, right? It's not dynamically going to change based on. Well, it could change a little bit, but for the most part, it's going to be pretty solid. What about installing a SIM? 1 person, 1 turn, $2,500, and it unlocks a ton of stuff, including EDR. I think the business is like kind of a low level because the business isn't going to really appreciate having a SIM. The reach of the SIM is pretty good because it's like one solution for the entire environment. So I have a tough time between reach and impact, Brandon. Like identifying between the two of those. What's the key differentiator between reach and impact?
Think of reach kind of like the scope, like how much of the environment is this going to affect, and the impact is like how much is this going to increase my current level of security.
Okay, so then reach I would say is high, but impact I wouldn't. The thing is, like, installing a SIM doesn't improve your cybersecurity program. It's once you have a SIM, you can actually begin rolling out EDR and pushing logs and stuff like that. So I feel like the SIM itself, like, you could have Splunk and not, pay a lot of money and not get any actual value out of it. But when you have a SIM, you have the opportunity to do amazing things. So I would give it kind of a lower impact, honestly.
Yeah, I honestly was thinking about giving an impact of like a 3 because, as you said, like a SIM, you're only going to get as much out of it as the quality personnel you have and the types of inputs you're putting into it. Yep. You got crap logging, the output's going to be crap.
Right. So I would do that, and then confidence. I would give it a pretty high confidence rating though, because it's definitely going to work. Like, we definitely know how to use it here.
Okay.
So what's the calculation on that now?
0 or 0.0108. So that's higher currently
than network segmentation.
Correct.
Okay. Now, video surveillance. This is one person, 3 turns, $10,000, which, by the way, is very close to network segmentation. It costs one more person for network segmentation, but everything else from a effort perspective is the same. So I would actually give it a little bit lower effort cost than what we did for network segmentation. With video surveillance, I think that the business actually would like that, because they will see the video surveillance cameras. That, management's going to be like, okay, like, I see it, I get it. The reach is wide reaching. Impact, I think it has a pretty good impact for protecting from physical security attacks, or, like, basically people like Clint walking onto the premises and physically doing harm to our environment. So I would give it a pretty high impact value.
Yep, I've got it doing kind of like the same impact actually as a SIM, because in my opinion, like, not all your threats are going to be necessarily physical.
Sure.
So taking that into account, I feel like we'd have to bump it from like a 4 to a 3. And as far as confidence, 0.9. So I've got 3, 4, 3, 0.9, cost 30,000. So it actually ends up being
no. The cost is 10,000. Yeah.
Well, the effort
yes.
would be just kind of multiplying that across 1 times 3 times 10,000 is 30. So that actually gives us 0.0018. So a whole order of magnitude less than the SIM.
Network segmentation?
No, the SIM. The SIM currently is the winner.
Okay, that's good.
So,
we're gonna unlock a bunch of stuff here. 2FA, IR procedures.
You got 5 seconds. 4.
Yeah, no, that's all right, because all of our assets are currently allocated.
Oh, I didn't even realize they're all gone.
Yeah, no, this is fine. Like basically, now they're unlocked. Okay. And by the way, guys, like, fun fact, this is what, like, being a CISO is, right? It's like doing the work and figuring out up front what your plan is, and then executing on the plan. Like, buying a SIM, installing a SIM, tuning a SIM, like, all of that is fine, and it's fun, and it's technical, but, like, when to buy the SIM and which SIM to buy and stuff like that, that is the role of kind of the CISO, as far as, well, not always the CISO, but making the plan on how you're going to do things. That's more of the role of the CISO. All right. So we've got our 3 resources right now, Brandon. We've unlocked this kind of tree right here. So now we have 2FA, IR procedures, encrypting network traffic. We have a lot of things here, guys. We also unlocked the asset inventory stuff. So vulnerability assessment, ICS testing. So what do you want to do, Brandon? Do you want to calculate some more, or do you want to make a plan?
Well, I mean, we've already done some calculations. Mm-hmm. So let's, instead of trying to go through and do, I'll tell you what, we have enough time maybe to do 1 or 2 more calculations.
Okay. Well, let me just kind of, instead of like going through this like linearly, let me jump to what I think would be valuable from a, kind of CISO perspective, right? So 2FA, I think 2FA is pretty important. So let's do the calculation for that one. It's 2 people, 3 turns, $5,000. I would say that the business isn't going to really like it because it introduces friction, unfortunately.
All right.
The reach is
Yeah,
pretty big.
the reach is massive, and the impact is massive.
Yes, agree 100%.
So y'all would say like a 4 or 5 for impact and reach, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I would say like let's say 4.5, right? Can you
All right,
can
that works.
can the BRICE method take fractions?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want. I mean, it's numeric. Yeah, I mean, you can get
Okay.
as granular as you want.
All right,
And
so
there are
4.5.
confidence. 4.5 for both.
Okay, 4.5, and then yeah, okay. All right, and then what else, Clint? What do you think would be another great control to go for? Security awareness training is always very important.
Security. I mean, when you combine multi-factor and security awareness training, that gives you massive reach, massive impact over your largest attack vector, which is social engineering and spear phishing and that sort of thing. But it also gives you the largest area of friction.
Yeah. Well, we got to pick something, guys, really quickly. We have 10.
Pick that one. Security awareness training.
Okay.
I'm obviously a fan of that.
Okay, and then I'm like, I randomly pick create IR procedures. Like, sorry, I know we're trying to do this the right way, but
hey,
at the
this
same time,
simulates the CISO.
Oh, looks like Clint froze there for a second.
Time frame.
What was that?
Oh, no cell phone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I thought dinged for saying ass.
No. So we got one more turn until we free up security awareness training and 3 turns on IR procedures, which probably did not align with the BRICE method. So network segment, what's our, I guess, Brandon, what's our current like highest value thing? Like what's the BRICE method tell us to implement?
Yeah, so our current highest value thing as of right now is still the SIM, just by a little bit over 2FA.
Okay, so I should have done the SIM instead of the IR procedures. I messed up, but let's just really quickly like do some calculations around vulnerability assessment and ICS safe testing methods and vendor certification, because we have to do safe testing before we do vulnerability assessment, or we run the risk of knocking our own ICS systems down. Let's do the calculation for ICS safe testing because we have to get that in here. It's 1 person, 2 turns, $0. Love the price point on this one, by the way. Thank you, developers. As far as the business goes, this is a high value for the business. Like, the business does not want production going down. So by doing this, we assure that we're not going to bring production down using our tools and techniques. So I think that this has a high business value. Reach, I would argue, is pretty high because it's for all industrial control systems at our plant.
But how much of your environment is industrial control systems?
That's a great question and a very fair
I would
point.
say is it how much of your environment, or is it what percentage of business impact is it? Because while it's probably a third or a quarter of the environment here, okay, maybe a third to, I'm gonna guess close to half the environment, but it is 90% of the business impact, if not more.
All right, we'll go with that kind of 90%. So we'll go kind of high.
Okay. What other values are we trying to calculate?
Confidence.
The confidence that this will work pretty high. I do feel like in the simulator, on the blue side, confidence is pretty high on most things because you do it correctly every time. It doesn't introduce any type of random variable of like on the attacker side where sometimes you don't hit, right? So I would give this a high confidence is basically what I'm trying to say.
As of right now, it is by far the highest one we have on our list.
We don't have randomness in this game. It's a variable X factor.
I like it. So we have 2 people, $45,000. ICS safe testing method only takes 1 person, and the SIM takes 1, right? So if we do ICS safe testing and SIM, that would be our 2 highest things per our calculations, right?
That is correct.
Cool. All right. Well, let's roll on that. All right, let's see. ICS safe testing methods. Boom. All right, so we've got our all of our resources allocated. We still got $42,000, so we're sitting pretty. I want to give a shout out to Jess Bishop and Just Ben. Jess, great to see you in chat. Missed you too. Hope you're doing well, and congratulations on the new job too. Absolute banger. Love it. All right, so let's end the turn here. Yeah, Carl's a random variable. That's for sure. Okay, we have threat monitoring enabled and IR procedures created, right? So very nice. Nothing like an IR plan to collect some dust. All right, we've got 2 people, 42 grand. What's our current highest value per the BRICE method?
That we've actually calculated?
Yes.
That would be 2 FA.
Okay, so 2 FA's got a high value. Log collection and analysis. Looks like we've got a new... what version of this game am we playing right now? Is this 1.10?
1.10.
Ooh, we are on bleeding edge version of this right now. Love it. So log collection and analysis. Let's look at this one. Is log collection analysis alerts when an asset is compromised. This is for pushing...
It's the same thing as EDR, but for network devices.
Yeah, this is awesome. Like this is an endpoint detection. Well done, dev team. Okay, so let's calculate a couple quick things, Brandon, if you will. Let's calculate vulnerability assessment, since now we can do it safely in our environment. 2 people, 3 turns, $8,500. That's the effort. Clint, there's a question in chat for you really quick while Brandon and I are doing this. For the business, this unlocks a vulnerability management program. So I think this is good for the business. They're going to like that. We can answer the board's question when they say, how secure are we? Or like, how screwed are we? So the business is going to like that. I would give it like middle of the road value for business, Brandon. If it were me. The reach is going to be high because it's all assets in our environment, IT and OT. Obviously the impact. I feel like this has like a kind of like 3/4 value impact. Like it's going to be great, but at the same time, it's going to suck because, knowledge is power. And when you see how vulnerable your entire environment is, it's a little concerning and, makes you want to cry a little bit into your pillow, but it is a necessary evil. So I would give it like, a 3 out of 5 if it were me.
I was about to say a 3 out of 5 is where we went with the 7. I feel like it's in the similar boat.
Yep. And then confidence, I would give a high value.
All right.
Oh, the question I think is not for me. China asked that how values are assigned and asked me how values are assigned. I asked which values, and China said...
I see. Okay, I understand. Really quick, we'll answer China's question in just a second, but what's the highest value thing right now, Brandon?
As of right now, the highest value thing is network segmentation, assuming we did ICS testing, right?
Yep.
So I assumed it had a high value because it has a high touch point on it, solves a lot of attack surface problems associated with social engineering and things like that. So in order to answer the question of how it's assigned a value, that's a Brandon question. My assigning, saying it, my rating of high was based off my assumption.
Yeah. And really quick, just in case you joined us a little late, we are using the BRICE method, which is essentially the same thing as this RICE method right here, except the B stands for business. And we are calculating for every decision we're making on what controls to put in our environment. We're calculating what is the impact of implementing that control, what is our confidence level in successfully implementing it correctly, what is the reach to the environment, right? So if we implement EDR on one endpoint, that doesn't have as much reach as intrusion detection system on the whole network. And then how much does it cost? People, time, money, that's the effort value. So we're trying to basically remove emotion from the decision-making process of how we're rolling out this information security program. So China, that's where these values are coming from, based on those categories. And we're subjectively discussing each of those categories for each of these actions within the environment. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure.
Can someone post that link? I don't have the link to it. If somebody can post the link in chat.
Yeah. Are you talking about?
I'm assuming the link to the BRICE method or the RICE method. And
Yeah.
by the way, decisions without emotion are boring.
Yes. All right, there's a link. I just Googled it. We don't have any affiliation with Product Plan or anything like that. I just Googled it. All right, so we have one person. We have one person, 32 grand. Network segmentation is going to take a couple turns. What are we thinking here, Brandon? Do we need to calculate some more stuff, or do we have like an obvious option to take in?
I mean, network segmentation is pretty high up. The only thing we currently have like another calculation for is vulnerability assessment.
Okay. All right. So we have to do a couple calculations here. Let's do. What do you think, Clint? Either we did video surveillance calculation too, Brandon.
I was just about to get up and go get me coffee because my dog refuses to get it for me, and then you asked me a question, so I can't go.
Yeah. We've done video surveillance and we've done vulnerability assessment as far as calculations go. I want to kind of calculate maybe two more things.
All right, give me two more things.
In my opinion, vulnerability, some sort of vulnerability assessment or vulnerability mapping, because you need to start getting visibility into your attack surface. That's my opinion.
We've already calculated vulnerability assessment.
I wasn't listening. Sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. Well, let's calculate vulnerability mapping, because vulnerability assessment and vulnerability mapping are similar, but vulnerability mapping has a lower effort value, a lower effort value. So let's, Clint, you understand vulnerability mapping in the context of the game versus
it's going to cost less. It's going to cost, number one, it's going to cost less.
I've got 11 seconds, guys. Really quick. What are we doing?
Do vulnerability, I would say vulnerability mapping right now, and I'll tell you why in a minute.
Okay, so I selected it. So why would we choose that?
Because even though it has a less percentage chance of finding more vulnerabilities, you don't have to do the ICS testing methods, so it's less impactful, even though you've probably already done them. It costs less resources, so it's less impactful. There's zero friction, or I would say a very low friction, because it doesn't impact systems or anything like that. Because you're doing it completely passively, it's not active vulnerability testing. So you're getting vulnerability, you're getting impact with low friction and low impact.
Okay.
Sorry. You're getting reach. That's what I meant to say. It's I don't understand these terms 100% yet, but anyway, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck without friction, and I guess without negative impact.
We'll have to do vulnerability assessments soon too, though, to unlock this other tree of AV and system hardening and stuff like that.
So that's a mistake there. You should be able to unlock that with vulnerability mapping as well. I think that any type of finding vulnerabilities should unlock everything vulnerability assessment does. I think it works that way in the game. It's just a misinterpretation of the connector lines there. So I'll have to verify.
Okay. Well, let's do. I feel like I want to do a calculation on endpoint detection, and this is interesting because now it's going to be interesting because EDR on the engineering workstation, to me, has a different impact value than EDR on, like Eric Johnson's Windows workstation up here, or Kathy's laptop. You know what I mean? So let's do this. Let's calculate EDR. The value for effort is fixed, right? It's 1,500. The confidence is high. Now, the business, I feel like the business is going to like this in that, well, actually, let's give the business like a middle of the road value, because here's a fun fact for people in chat. When you talk to IT and you talk about putting an agent on workstations or on servers, they immediately push back. Oh, this EDR agent you put on my machine is slowing it down. It's like, I haven't even installed it yet, Carl. Like, what are you talking about? You're jumping the gun, okay? And putting an agent on in 2022 does not slow your system down. So, take a hike, my friend. But So middle of the road for business. The reach is pretty low because we only touch one endpoint. And the impact, I feel like the impact is going to be the variable per workstation, right? So I would give it a high impact value for the engineering workstation, and a low value for Eric Johnson's thing. So as far as EDR goes, if we can give it a high value for the engineering workstation and some of the other more really sensitive business mission critical systems, that would be good. Okay, guys, we have gotten a trophy here for
I'm in the meeting. Go upstairs.
Yeah, a good baseline security. We've done network segmentation. We've done vulnerability mapping, so we've got some visibility now. You can see here on the interface that the different colored regions indicates that our network segmentation has occurred, and we've also got visibility into our vulnerabilities, which absolutely sucks, especially with no patch currently available for some of these issues. Okay. Where are we with a calculation, Brandon?
Yep. So as of right now, endpoint detection is our highest, followed by the video monitoring, followed by the vulnerability assessment.
Okay. Now, just putting on your blue hat for a second, Brandon, and looking at some of these actions, where does your subjective mind go as far as like a good control?
My subjective mind goes as far as a good control.
Yeah, like network, like NIDS or
honestly,
patching.
All right, so NIDS is going to have a further reach because you're going to be able to see more. However, endpoint, as far as the scope, endpoint detection is going to give you a deeper view. So really and truly, I would say that let's kind of cast a broad net first. So I kind of go with the log collection and analysis. Mm-hmm. Then you can kind of follow that up on critical systems with EDR.
So log collection and analysis is an endpoint control.
Well, is it endpoint control on a network device? So NIDS.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, we can actually install NIDS here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we can put 4 network intrusion detection systems in our environment. Basically, one in our IT infrastructure, one in our endpoint, one in our DMZ, and one in our OT.
Well, let me ask you this, and you might not know the answer. So is it a detection system or a prevention system?
I think it's a detection system.
Okay. I'll try to figure out what exactly the benefit of that over, just doing the log analysis for the network stuff would be.
I think it captures lateral movement.
Okay.
Aaron says that we have 15 seconds. So what are we doing?
Just do the NIDS.
Okay. And like just 3 of them? Because we can do 3.
Yeah, might as well.
All right, let's do NIDS. Oh shit.
Oh, you're out of time.
Crap.
Well, to go back, like if you think about it, both of them are detection only. It's just a matter of kind of what are you focusing on, what are you detecting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess the NIDS would be more vulnerability centric, detecting vulnerabilities, and as you said, kind of the logs would give you more kind of this talking to this.
Yeah. Well, we can roll NIDS out everywhere right now, so let's do that. And gosh, like Brandon, I know we don't play this game very often together, but like nothing irritates me more than leaving resources on the table. I might even lose the game, but if I have like wicked high utilization rate, I love it. It's like how I win. Okay. So let's look at a couple things while we have a minute here. All right, so let's talk about value here. Harden RDP, that's a pretty good one. Endpoint detection, log collection and analysis. We've installed these NIDS, but I don't think they're doing anything until we actually configure them correctly, right? But by the way, like I don't know how many times you've seen this, Brandon, but for chat, this is a reality. CISOs who don't know what they're doing Will often, yeah, thank, yeah. I'm getting some internal communications. Here's the thing: CISOs who don't know what they're doing love buying appliances because they can stroke a check. They can then turn to like management and be like, "Hey, listen, like we've got intrusion detection system now." An actual person who knows what they're doing knows that you need to actually properly configure these things and actually maintain them. So a lot of times CISOs will buy appliances and then not properly staff them, not properly configure them, or the vendor, does configuration as part of the onboarding process, but it's like a generic configuration which isn't tailored for your environment, and that's a hot mess on fire.
No, right, right there with you.
Yeah, exactly. That's yet another like hidden gem of the reality of working in cybersecurity.
Well, a perfect example with like these intrusion detection systems is I've actually had this issue in like real life. So CISO goes out, manager goes out, buys like an IDS, plugs it in, just thinks it's magically works. Like, you just pull down the signatures and it blocks stuff. And, don't need to train like Bob or Carl, I guess is who you like to blame most of the time. Don't need to train Carl, like, it's just magic. Well, the problem is that a lot of people don't realize that, because you can fragment packets and whatnot, there are ways around IDS systems. Now, it's a game of cat and mouse. A lot of your IDS providers now will actually go and try to put them back together. But the way Windows and the way Linux puts them together is completely different. So you actually have to configure the IDS to use first versus last versus, there's 5 different methods for putting together packets, different operating systems, different device styles, puts them together differently. So if you don't train Carl to know this and you actually don't configure it right, and your IDS appliance just assumes that, Windows is predominantly out there, so we're just going to default to the Windows method, and you plug it into an ICS environment, which is primarily Linux.
Yeah.
Or you actually, if there's any kind of like, bypasses there of trying to fragment the packets in a certain way, are you actually going to reconstruct them in the right way to fire that alert?
Yeah, and honestly, you have a false sense of security, right? Like you're like, oh, we have a very mature information security program. We're very secure. In reality, it's like a house of cards. Like you don't actually, like you have all of the tools there, but they're not doing what you think they're doing. So you've actually, kind of a misrepresentation. Okay, so what's our highest value action right now?
So our highest value action still is the EDR on the engineering workstation, followed by the video cameras, followed by vulnerability assessments for what we completed. Okay. Let's calculate EDR for a few more systems, right? Because I feel like some of the values, like the business, the reach, it's really the impact is that main variable, right? What did you give the engineering workstation for a reach? I mean, for an impact value. I ended up giving it a 4.
A 4. Okay, so Clint, in this environment, what else would you give the same level of kind of impact of having EDR with the engineering workstation, like this PLC down here,
I mean,
or the AD server?
Oh, so you're specifically for your EDR, basically you're saying what the same asset rating, basically?
Yeah, like we've calculated that the engineering workstation is like super important to get EDR on. From a impact value, I'm trying to like look at other things, like obviously the workstations.
Any workstations that touch control systems, historians are pretty high on the value. The terminal server, if you have one, you don't have one in this environment. So historians and anything associated with the process control environment.
Is this PCS database the historian?
Yeah, it's a historian.
Oh, we got you.
I put, so basically,
2,
based on
1,
what Clint,
bleep.
Yeah, I used all the assets based on what Clint said. I was doing the BRICE method like really quickly, right? As far as the value, like, okay, this is the same calculation as the engineering workstation. So we've got that secured. I'm going to go ahead and put EDR on this one for this one endpoint, right? Are there any other assets, Clint, in the environment that have the same kind of impact value of putting EDR on to the engineering workstation? And the reason I ask is because that was our highest value, calculation. So like that was where we were. So if there's anything else, I'd like to do it now.
I mean, obviously, so I will tell you that in this version that you're playing on right now in the simulation, we've adjusted impact values, production values accordingly to real life. So now, like things like your Active Directory server do have high impact value to the business. Workstations, they vary. Your SIM and IDSs are low impact to the business, but high impact to security. So it just really depends on how you want to look at it.
Okay. So I guess I would say that in my mind, the AD server and this DMZ database are the only assets that don't have EDR on it that are comparable to the engineering workstation as far as like criticality goes. So let's go ahead and do that. And then that'll complete our, these calculations for endpoint detection that map to the engineering workstation. Okay. So now, Brandon, let us do a little bit more calculation. Now, here is a confusing thing. Clint, we don't have log collection analysis configured on these NIDS devices. So does that mean these NIDS are doing nothing right now?
They should. I think we had a debate on that internally, whether the log, whether we're supposed to have log collection on them or not. From a that only in the game, that only impacts whether or not you detect a compromise. So, and I guess we need to update that in the descriptions. Log collection and analysis on NIDS is just about compromise detection. They're still doing their job from a NIDS perspective.
Okay. So then I guess let's calculate log collection and analysis for all of the NIDS devices, right? From the business perspective, and we've already made our all actions, so we can let the timer expire. From a business perspective, I think it's middle of the road, right? It doesn't hurt the business. It doesn't really help the business. It's just middle of the road. They're not even going to be aware that we did it. The reach is, I guess maybe a 2 of 5 because we have to touch each one, right? The impact will be high because it'll tell us if we have a compromise, which is important. The effort is 1 turn, 1 person, $500. But I would almost argue that do it as 4 people, $2,000, and then 1 turn, because we'll be able to do 3 of them in 1 turn, and then we can do the last one on the second turn. So maybe calculate it as like 1.3 turns, Brandon.
All right.
And then high confidence level. So how does log collection and analysis on our NIDS stack up in our what decision to make?
So it edges out, believe it or not, both the cameras and the vulnerability assessment.
Interesting.
At a 0.0031 compared to the 0.00108 of the video assessments and 0.00088 of.
All right. Well, then I guess let's do that. And I'll use my end user environment last, the corporate environment, which honestly is, it's kind of funny. The corporate end user environment is most likely the one to get compromised, but it's the one I do last because the level of criticality is lower. So, that's just interesting to me that that's not where I go first, even though I know it's the most likely to get compromised, but it's the least important one in the grand scheme of things.
See, I think I'm actually the opposite. That's like the first place I would go.
Because it's most likely to get compromised?
Yeah, so like if it's kind of like if you have like a boat that's sinking with multiple holes. It makes more sense to patch the biggest vector or the biggest hole first, so you can kind of control the volume of water coming in. So
Which
if
one are we
that's where
talking about? I missed it.
So, like, basically, I have to
prioritizing,
yeah, we're prioritizing. There's 4 NIDs, but I had 3 people, so I had to pick one of the 4 NIDs not to do this turn. And I was telling Brandon, even though I know that the corporate environment is the most likely to get compromised because Carl operates in this environment, I do the NIDs in all the other environments first because the criticality of the assets in those environments are too important, and the end user workstation environment's less important. But it's funny because that's the one that's most likely to get compromised.
Yeah,
and
well,
Brandon was saying he's the opposite.
Well, this comes down to which risk analysis formula you're using, right? Because ultimately your risk is going to be impacted by your attack surface, but also the criticality or severity of the impact or of a compromise. So if you have a broad attack surface, then that would increase your risk. But if the impact of that area is low, it decreases your risk. And then if you have other mitigating factors like network segmentation, it decreases your risk even further. So I'm with you, or whoever said it, in that I would not focus on the workstation zone as much at first, because that is a low risk area, even though it's a large attack surface.
Yeah. And so 2 things. One, Jarrett in chat said that he would do the DMZ last, and actually I agree with that. Like, thinking about it now, I would have done DMZ last, not the corporate one. But I also want to point out that like it's such an on-brand blue teamer response to go right after the most likely to get compromised environment, and it's such a GRC response to be like based on asset priority to the business. So I find that interesting. Yeah.
Well, see, this is where I think like models like your FAIR framework gets really interesting, because like as far as like attack surface, you also have to think about contact frequency. So the impact's lower, but the contact frequency, once again, in those 2 areas, DMZ's always exposed. So knocking out a vulnerability with a huge contact frequency because it's got a NAT to the internet.
You said FAIR.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of the FAIR methodology, and when it comes to risk analysis, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean that'd be I would almost argue that's kind of like a competitor to using the BRICE framework, but that does require a lot more kind of.
FAIR is specific to risk, whereas BRICE is not.
Yeah,
I think.
FAIR gives you essentially what you're trying to do is prioritizing stuff. Risk gives you way of prioritizing things in business dollars as opposed to kind of funny money like a 3 to 4, when you can actually come back and says, there is a 60% chance that this is going to happen. The average value is going to be $50,000 when it does happen. On the low end, it's 10, and on the high end, it's 1.3. And the chances of it being over, 250,000 is, 10%. That's what.
Well, to be fair, it's all about risk.
Oh, I see what you did there. Is there a rim shot sound effect we can play right now? Dude, I do love it though. I didn't realize you knew about FAIR, Clint.
I know about everything. You know this already.
And that you like it. I know, but you're an ICS pen tester.
Dude, I am a risk nerd above all else, and I love me some, advanced analytical calculus and variable change analysis.
So you might find this interesting, Jerry, is I actually met a guy a couple of years ago, and their pen testers actually worked with someone from their consulting practice to actually use FAIR analysis to rank the pen test results. Like, this vulnerability or this issue has the greatest amount of business risk or impact in a dollar amount. And that, instead of high, medium, low, or red, yellow, green, they're actually able to say, hey, based off the business systems that impacts, the scope, all this stuff, this is the dollar amount and likelihood that we assign this finding.
Yeah, that is an interesting way to take advantage of the model. Yeah.
And he said people just gobbled it up, just loved it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's definitely way more objective, right? I mean, there's still some subjectivity, but it's way more objective than high, medium, low, or like a heat map or anything like that, right? So,
Yeah, I think on the flip side, it's just the amount of effort you have to put into doing that assessment and getting that things in order to prioritize. So, like that was kind of what he said was drawback is because it's more resource intensive, it does cost a lot more for pen tests. But usually, what happens is a lot of firms will do a pen test a year, rotate between 3 firms, and they just do that every 3 years to kind of see where they are.
yeah, no, it's you pay for what you get, basically.
Yeah.
So real quick, we do have what looks like a heat rash going on over here, Clint. What does this indicate? Does this mean that something's been detected?
It means that that device has been attacked. It does not mean it has necessarily been compromised or that the attack was successful, but that does indicate that you have detected an attack on that device.
Okay, so
Thank you, NIDS.
So absent of doing the calculation, I'm going to just prioritize that we do these 2 things. These are the 2 things that we can do on the endpoint. One, change the default creds, which is makes me outrageously angry. I know that this is a simulator and that this is a game, but like default creds on your gateway firewall is like the most like resume generating event ever. Like you should be fired instantly if you have default creds on your gateway firewall. That is so dumb.
Well,
So
we do increase the default credentials vulnerabilities frequency on the games that you play.
Stop it. No, you don't. Stop. I swear to God. I swear
Epic
to God.
troll.
Like, oh, we lost a resource. Brandon, I don't know if you've been following. I play this game every Wednesday with Clint, kind of commentating and engaging. And I swear to God that it knows when I'm logged in because I will be standing at an HMI and I'll take like 6 turns in a row to destroy it. And I don't. And then I get arrested. Like, I swear, like, whatever. I probably shouldn't poke the lead developer, but
I'm not the lead developer. I'm just the lead designer.
No. I was calling Aaron out specifically.
Oh, I didn't hear you. Sorry. Yeah.
All right. So this machine has got a skull on it, which indicates like not a good situation. We do have to activate IR. One thing that's unique to this particular, what is going on up here? Hold on. We've got multiple problems, y'all. Hold on. Oh crap. Jeez. All right. So we're gonna activate IR, which takes a full turn. But we can do 3 things that take 1 turn right now. So Brandon, is there anything that we have ranked high that is a 1 turn thing?
Maybe. Nah, it doesn't look like it. Not that we've calculated anything out.
All right. Well, we can enforce strong passwords. That's just a good idea because, as Clint just mentioned, default creds, weak passwords. That's like a wide-reaching control to implement because, like, basically no one anywhere will be doing it. Implement strong Wi-Fi has a wide reach and is one turn. And then let us. Can we do anything to the engineering workstation? No. And then, okay. Hold on. I'm going to put log collection and analysis on this machine right here, just because, obviously this terminal server is owned right now. So I'm trying to basically put a perimeter around it. But we're about to enter IR, which I think all the calculations go out the window at that point. Let's see what happens. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
So
wait, what did they get? How did they get that? Go back to
damaged HMI.
Where's the results? And how did they get that? That must have been on site.
They're remote.
Oh, they got the engineering workstation. The engineering workstation was by proxy.
hold on. Let's see what they did here. This is their thing. They did OSINT, physical recon, they recruited some hackers. They did spear phishing. They scanned from the internet. They found the gateway firewall. It looks like they enumerated services on the gateway firewall. They
Terminal
upgraded their
server.
rig. They
hit.
attacked
That's
the
what
gateway
happened. They hit your terminal
phishing.
server. They hit your terminal server, and the terminal server wasn't secured against and got proxy access to the engineering workstation, which then gave you secondary proxy access to all the PLCs.
So interesting. So even though we had the engineering workstation secured, like we had hardened it a little bit, it still had a bunch of vulnerabilities that we didn't know about. It got compromised. So this is, yeah, gosh dang. It's interesting. It's unfortunate, obviously. But Clint, looking at this, God. Okay, so here's the disposition from my perspective. Okay, guys, here's what I'm thinking from this perspective. Let me move this. Okay, I think the BRICE method could be interesting, could be useful, but I feel like you almost have to calculate all of the things before you even begin, right?
Yeah.
So that's number one.
You need to have a risk analysis calculation done. You have to already. I would say that I'll say this and then I'll just turn it over to Brandon. But in my opinion, from what I can tell, a true risk assessment or risk analysis framework helps you prioritize your risk. BRICE helps you prioritize your mitigation strategy, and it should be based off of the risk analysis.
Correct. The idea is you could use BRICE in tandem with another framework to kind of prioritize the controls.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, trying to compute this stuff out, live, we lost I don't know how many resources because we just.
Well, right here, utilization 94%. Not terrible, but not perfect.
Terrible.
And we may have we were choosing our highest value one based on the population of ones that we had calculated. So there may have been a higher value control that we just didn't do the calculation on. So that's a lesson learned. So guys, what do you think about the BRICE method as far as a framework goes? Clint?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it works great as a risk mitigation prioritization tool because I think that's where it should be used. But again, it's not a risk assessment or a risk analysis, risk prioritization tool substitute. I agree with Brandon. It should be used in tandem with another risk prioritization method.
Yeah, 100%. So we definitely tested it today. We definitely saw the limitations of it. I mean, basically, this threat actor just walked right in and pwned us. I do wonder, though, if we could have prevented this, right? So they got through, if I'm not mistaken, they got through from spear phishing, correct? Terminal server. So how did
even with two-factor?
I guess, man. Like
basically they were very skilled in technical social engineering. Apparently, then you would look and see if they researched technical engineering. If not, it was a really lucky strike. And we did not harden the RDP on the terminal server. We have a terminal server. We didn't harden the terminal server. The terminal server is there, especially in industrial environments, specifically to give remote access to the process control network. And it's supposed to be in a safer method, but if it's not hardened, it's just another attack surface.
Yeah, and it doesn't even look like they did any research. So
it was a lucky strike.
So this is what I'm saying. Okay, this active adversary, no research, pops the terminal server and basically just laterally moves into a PLC and blows it up, or an HMI. Meanwhile, this guy researches the crap out of it, gets right in front of an HMI and takes 6 turns and is unsuccessful in all 6 turns. I'm calling shenanigans. All right. So you caught them.
You caught them. They just love making you flustered. Just like, ah!
I swear to God, I do think that there is something about it because they know I'm going to play this game at 11:30 on Wednesdays. They know what's going
There
on.
is now you keep harping on it though, you're gonna get it, but there is nothing specific to Jerry is playing.
All right.
If there was, you would know it. Trust me.
Well, then I just have bad
We'd
luck.
be more
But you know
overt
what?
about it.
That is not unlike real life either. By the way, though, it's sometimes it's just bad luck, right? A lot of threat actors will spray and pray and find out, like when something calls back into their C2 infrastructure, that's when they find out who they've actually compromised, right? So, sometimes it's just bad luck and it just sucks. So it can happen anytime. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today. Special thanks to Brandon Poole. Brandon, thanks for coming on the stream. Thanks for introducing us to the BRICE method and allowing us to kind of test it, in the simulator and see how it worked. It was not successful today, but I think that we identified that it really isn't a framework. It's much more of a tool to help implement a framework, right, in a prioritized way. So definitely enjoyed that. Hopefully you guys got value out of the stream. Obviously, hit the like, share it if you did get value. We will be here every Wednesday at 11:30. Next week will be a red team playthrough. So today we were blue. Next week it'll be red. We may be simulating some type of advanced persistent threat. We've done Wizard Spider in the past. I think actually we are doing it. Next week we're doing the Russian one. What's the Fuzzy Bear or Sandworm? We're doing Sandworm.
We just did Sandworm.
Did we? Oh yeah. I'm sorry.
So well,
then I guess
are you? When are you doing? Is that the rematch with Eric Taylor? When are you doing your rematch with Eric Taylor? He's blue team. He could go against you on that one.
I'll see if he's available. Yeah. So next week, live heads up battle, me versus Eric. If Eric's game for it, I did lose to him, which sucked pretty badly.
He is traveling right now. We know for work, so it just depends on. I saw that LinkedIn post, so it just depends on if he's available. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll still try to target some type of heads up let's play for next week. Maybe I'll take Brandon on. Brandon, you available next week possibly?
I'm possibly. I just don't know if you want that smackdown. I don't know if you can handle like a two losses.
Oh my God, this guy. I'll come at your HMI like a spider monkey. All right.
You're all jacked up on Mountain Dew.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it. Thanks everybody for being here today. Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Brandon. Y'all be good. If you want more information, go to ThreatGEN.com. That's the simulator that we were playing. It's red versus blue. There's a ton of the simulators there, obviously, but there's also a ton of like educational content and some other aspects around the entire ThreatGEN platform. So go check it out. If it's your speed, that's awesome. If not, at least come back next Wednesday for the live play. All right, everybody, thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.